All right. You can take a look at this while I'm talking to you, this illustration. Now, some of you are relative newcomers. This particular chart is not something you would be familiar with. It's called Maya Mechanics Advanced Imaging, and it is a tool that is used for rave psychologists and primary health system practitioners. It's a way of looking very deeply into the nature of somebody's design. The graphing there will just sort of give you an idea of the various components that are there, and you can sort of keep it for future use. But it gives me an opportunity to show you where I'm going to be focusing attention today. And where I'm going to be focusing attention, if you're looking at your sheet on the right-hand side, on the upper right-hand side where you see the sun and the earth, the symbols of the sun and earth, and the nodes, that's the area where I'm really going to be focused. And this is about two things. The personality, sun, earth, it represents the way in which your mind operates. And the personality nodes represent your perspective. Two things that are there. And fundamentally what I'm going to look at today is the way you look at the world and the way you think about the world, how that can be influenced by people who are in your aura, and how you can begin to recognize that and see that. And it's something that's very important for you. We have two basic things that are at work. We're always dealing with duality. We're always dealing with duality. This is the nature of our being, the this and that, the yin and the yang, all of these things. So the first thing to understand is that when we're looking at our view, our perspective, that our perspective is a duality. Again, this is going to be your personality nodes. In this afternoon session, I'm going to go through each of your charts, and I'm going to reference your nodes and your sun earths to give you an idea of what to look for. Now basically when we're looking at the nodes represent the way we're intended to see. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, the nodes basically represent a geometry for us. It represents the way in which we are set up in our movement in this life, the way we're set up to look at things. We're all given a different way in terms of our perspective. In other words, we each have different views. So that if you take a whole bunch of people and they each have different nodes, and you stand them on a street corner and you stage a traffic accident, the fact is that all of those people watching, each of them according to their nodes is going to have a different view. They're not all going to see the same thing. They're going to see different aspects of those things. So one of the first things to understand is that each and every one of us by design have a very specific way we're intended to look at the world. But it's not fixed. It's not fixed. And when I say it's not fixed, what it means is that there is always a counterpoint. A counterpoint. Now, in the case of the way in which we look at the world, the counterpoint is called distraction. So you're supposed to be looking at the world this way, because that's your design, and something distracts you and puts you over here. Okay, and we all have a theme of what we're supposed to look at and what our distraction is. All of us. So if you look at the nodes in this particular illustration, the personality side, those nodes, one of the things that you'll see is to the right of the nodes, there's two shapes in a box. That is, there's a shape that has the number 4. It looks like a stop sign. And beside that is a triangle with the number 5 in it. Now basically, that stop sign is color. And color is the first level beneath the line. Now think about the way in which we are programmed. The way in which we are programmed is that we have a crystal consciousness being penetrated by a neutrino, a very fast-moving material force. So the neutrino hits the crystal. That's an entry frequency. It's what we call base. When the neutrino goes through the crystal, this is tone. This is where we get our cognitive architecture. And when the neutrino leaves the crystal, we have an exit frequency, and this is called color. So color basically is always delivering the information. It's your color that's delivering the information of what kind of perspective you're here to have. Now, there's something interesting about colors. There's 6 of them, 1 to 6.
that just like the lines, that they operate in harmonies. The 1 with the 4, the 2 with the 5, the 3 with the 6. So, for example, if you have a first color perspective, which means that you see themes of fear in the world and stuff like that, if you have a first color perspective, that its tendency is to move, transfer is the terminology we use, to transfer to the distraction. We're always being caught between what we're here to see and being distracted. Now, it's not about eliminating distraction. It isn't. We're designed to have an imbalanced process. In other words, we're designed to have most of our view dominate us, so we're supposed to see the way we're supposed to see, yet at the same time to be able to have as a balance the distraction that's there to give us a sense of the way things can be. For example, my perspective. I have a 6-color perspective. Now, the 6-color perspective is unusual in that you're not looking out at the world at all. You're looking at yourself and seeing how the world affects you. So it's kind of very selfish, very internal way of seeing. That's the way that I see. Now, my distraction is to go to the 3rd color, and the 3rd color is the power color, and this is all about seeing winners and losers. Okay, so if I'm being correct, I'm seeing in my frame. In other words, I'm seeing everything about the way, I'm seeing the world through my lens. But when I'm in distraction, I see the world the way others see it. I see the world out there, the worlds of the winners and losers, all the things that are going on out there. Now, if I didn't have that, I'd be lost in my bubble. I would only see things within my own context. And I would never see that there are other ways to see things. So we always need a little bit of our distraction. Now, think about this. Here I am with my 6-color way of looking at things, and I can be distracted. Now, what will distract me? What will distract me is another person. Now, there are certain people in my life who are always going to pull my distraction out instead of my real looking at things. So, for example, any of you, you have a certain way you're supposed to look at the world. It's the dominant theme for you. But there's someone in your life who makes you see entirely differently. That could lead to real problems for you. Think about it this way. The 2nd color is called possibility. And the 5th color, its harmony, is called probability. They're very different things. So a 2nd color perspective is that you can see possibility in anything. Now, you know what that means. You know, it's possible that, the gods are going to show up here right now and all of you are going to get halos. Anything, it's possible. It's possible, right? Okay, possibility is one way of looking at things. Anything is possible. Now, if you're a possibility person, basically you're a sampler. You get to see all the possibilities, but you can't get stuck on any of them. If you're looking at horses in a race and you're a possibility person, it doesn't mean that it's possible that horse could win. Yes, that's true. It's possible they could all win. It's possible they could all die. I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible, right? Don't bet the bank, on that possibility that they could win. On the other side, they get distracted to probability. Now, probability is a very different perspective. Probability is looking at something and it's pretty much a sure thing. This looks like it's really going to go this way. If you're a probability person and you think that horse is going to win, put your money on the horse. Okay, so think about what happens to these beings. Here you are, you're a possibility person. You're only here to see possibilities. And you got somebody who steps into your aura and they change that to probability. And the two of you are talking about an investment that you're going to make together, right? And the other one is saying to you, oh, this is really going to work. And you're going, yeah, it's probable. I see the probability. I see that it will work. Now, this is a possibility person. They're not here to see probability. They're only here to have a little bit of probability as a balance, to know that not all those possibilities are nebulous, that there is this potential that some possibilities are real. See, we get changed in the way in which we look at things all the time by the other. So here you are, this projector, and somebody has invited you into their life. You know, you're wonderful, I love you, please come into my life. You know? And you think, wow, everything's terrific. You know, and there you are, the possibility lover, right? Anything is possible. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you start into the probability trip. You know, you're being conditioned. And you're being conditioned by the other to see in a way that is not natural for you to see. And you see, the moment that you understand the mechanism is the moment that you begin to take a step in transcendence. Look, the only thing that matters, if you're really interested in awakening, is to experience what it is to be passenger consciousness. It's what my work is all about. In the work of passenger consciousness, in the way in which it operates, the life is not a dilemma. The life is the entertainment. It is what we're here to do. That we're here to experience the life. We're here to experience it. In the work that I do in Reyv-soциология, techniques that have been developed relative to the things that I'm going to show you today, all of this is about putting you in touch with your passenger consciousness. So take the example. You're a possibility person, right? You know, that's your thing, right? And all of a sudden, you're aware, while you're in a conversation with somebody, that you're seeing not the possibility anymore, but you're seeing a sure thing. And you're aware, watching your movie, you know, that your mind is now on that sure thing. You've taken an enormous step in transforming your consciousness. An enormous step. When I first introduced this to my students, they would all get back to me, you know, in class and stuff and say, oh, I experienced it. I experienced the transference, because it's quite a thing when you hear one of these mechanical things and then you get to experience it. It's quite a trip. Yeah, I experienced that. Isn't it great? But it doesn't go away, was their comment. You know, I didn't get rid of it. We do not get rid of it. It's not about getting rid of it. It's about seeing it. It's about seeing it. See, you have an assumption that you're in charge of your personalities. You know, they're mechanisms. They're easily moved this way and that way. And you're here to recognize. I mean, about 5 years ago, when I first started the program, I did for a while readings online in order to develop the techniques. I did readings online, and what I discovered was that most of the people that were coming, without really understanding why, were projectors. I had a lot of projectors. And it was so obvious to me that this is a very, very powerful tool for projectors to really understand shifts in their relationships with others and allowing them to be aware of the negative influences that the other can bring in certain situations. If you're a possibility person, you don't want to be conditioned to probability because it's going to lead to problems for you. You're not going to see correctly. Yet at the same time, the moment you can see that happen, who's watching? I mean, this is the most magical thing about being in one of these forms. You know, there you are, and you're a possibility person, and you see your mind shifting to probability, and you're aware of that, you're watching that. Who's watching? This is passenger consciousness. And when you can live there in passenger consciousness, not just to look for distraction, but to live your life there, you're awake. And it's not about being aloof. It's not about being distant. It's not about being detached. It's not about being disconnected. It isn't about any of those things. Passenger consciousness is about being a fully absorbed audience. You know what that's like when you go into a movie and you're having a great time? You know, you're totally absorbed in it. This is what we're here for. To be totally absorbed as an audience of this. You're not going to change any of it. You can't. All you can do is be aware. And the more aware you are, the easier it all becomes. And the only place that you can live that awareness is as a passenger consciousness watching the movie. It's why I teach mechanics. So you can see the damn things. But the seeing becomes the thing itself. The moment you can see it, you're already in that place. You're already beginning to be that absorbed audience. See, look, most people's personalities are incapable of being aware, because they've got nothing but the bullshit of their daily lives that cover and crowd that whole screen. Everything that's going on in their personality consciousness is about what I have to do, all the fears, all the anxieties, all the trips, dealing with the past, looking into the future, and all of that with the responsibility that that mind doing all of that is going to be in charge. Remember the casino, eh? You know, this is where personality consciousness is. Personality consciousness is all in, what am I going to do next? You know? What am I going to do to save myself? What am I going to do to make a difference? You know, what am I going to do? It's not what being aware is. You know, all the personality ever wants to do is get you to your not-self purpose. Everybody has a not-self purpose. Everybody. You know, if you have an open emotional system, your not-self purpose is to avoid confrontation and truth. At the end of your life, it's terrific. I avoided the confrontation, never saw the truth, now I can die in peace. Isn't that nice? What a way to go, eh? Because you see, the more you look at somebody's design, the first thing that you get to see is that there's all this not-self purpose that's there. You know, I'm going to hold on to that thing that's terrible for me, see? See, I did it all my life. I held on to all that garbage, you know, the undefined spleen. You know, it's got its not-self purpose. You know, the open ego, you know. I've spent my whole life trying to prove myself, and I haven't. You know? I mean, it's a horror if you get caught in the trap. It is. Look, think about what we are as a duality. You know, the mental process, the decision-making process. We have been raised to believe that it is our minds that are here to control our destiny, that it's up to our minds to decide what we're going to do and follow through, to analyze it, you know, and then follow through with all of that stuff and go with it. I mean, this is the way that we have been trained. And the moment that your mind is trying to be in control of your life, the first thing to understand is that it automatically becomes a liar. Automatically. If your mind has to make decisions, it means that it is going to automatically lie. It's going to control what it says, because it doesn't want to affect the thing that it thinks is going to happen the next time that it's, you know, and so forth and so on. It's going to try to calculate its way around. The other person says, how are you? And, you know, it's not going to really tell them, and so forth and so on. It goes on and on and on and on. Because the moment that your mind has to be in control of your life, it's got to lie, because there is no other way to make sense out of all of this. And then you never live a life of truth, and you never get to communicate with anybody honestly. You don't. You don't get to live out your potential. You don't get any of those things. The mind is not here to be an inner and outer authority. It isn't. It isn't. So the moment that you strip your mind of that potential, you know, of distorting everything for you, and you give authority to your form principle, what you get then is a chance to work with your mind, to see what it's all about, instead of it controlling you. See, this whole thing that I'm going to show you about, being able to see these things like distraction, where it's so easy for your perspective to be shifted by somebody else. You can never trust what your mind thinks about all that ever again. You can't. The way in which you've looked at things, the way in which you've dealt with things have all been conditioned all of your life. You know, we're here to be our own authority. We're here to operate correctly as ourselves. You can't do that if your mind is running the ship. You cannot. It does not work. And at the same time, every time that you can see that you're caught in a mechanical construct, will remind you that your job is not to fight it, but to experience it. Human beings struggle with their lives, struggle with them, suffer, carry the burdens, all this stuff. It is truly not what we're here for. I mean, truly, this is not what we're here for. You cannot even have an age where projectors are dominant unless you have an age in which the material plane is not the point. Because it's not. Nine-centered beings are not here to worry about their survival, but look at our world. Nine-centered human beings are not here that the main theme of their life is, I'm going to survive and kill the one who is in competition with me. That's not our trip. And if you follow strategy and authority, what you get to see is that's what it does. It looks after the material plane. Because there are other things to do. I think it's very difficult for most of us, because we take it for granted, is to understand how privileged you are. Human design is elitist to begin with. It only appeals to a certain fractal of human beings on the planet that are really ready. It is not for everyone. If you're a projector and you want to be educated in human design, it's quite an investment that you're going to make with a 30% discount thrown in. It's still going to be quite an investment. You have to be very privileged. You have to have the resources. You have to have the intellect. You have to be in the right society. It is not an easy thing, and you have to see how clearly you need to understand that privilege in order to take it seriously for yourself. To recognize that this is possible for you. It's not possible for everyone. It isn't, but it is possible for you. It's the whole thing about mechanics. Mechanics say, look, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be any of those things. You just have to see the obvious logical truths of mechanics and check it out for yourself and live that way. And live that way. See, you're here to be aware. You're not here to be anything else. You're not here to be the great workers and strivers. And you're here to be aware. It's your awareness that's your potential great reward for this life. You're here to be more aware, if that's such a phrase as possible, in the sense that it is the main theme for you as a projector on this plane. Recognition is, in and of itself, the bedrock of awareness. And you can't recognize and you can't see if you're trapped in all your personality junk. You can't. It's like the mind that somebody's talking to you, and instead of listening to them, your mind's trying to figure out what to say next. This is the personality that has no connection to awareness, because you're not taking in the other at all. As a matter of fact, they don't even have to be there. If it wasn't so crazy, you'd just talk it out yourself and answer your own questions. Because your mind, if your mind's into all of that, there's nobody there. There's nobody you're connected to. There's nothing you're seeing. When your mind is thinking, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, it doesn't see all of this. It doesn't see what's coming towards it. Because you see, as a projector, the moment you start pointing yourself towards anything, whoa, look out. Because you're cutting everything else off. You're not even ready for invitations. Because they're not going to come. They're not. There's no half pregnant in being a projector. You're either a projector or you're not a projector. You're either a projector or you're not self. And most of it's just not self. It is. Just lost in all the bullshit and all the conditioning and all of that stuff. See, it's the see. You're here to see. You need to see the mechanism. You need to see that there's that person that can step into your aura, and all of a sudden, not only are you seeing differently, you're thinking differently. In the same way that through the nodes we get to see what our perspective is and what distraction is. When we look at the sun, earth on the personality side, when we're looking at the mind, the color shows us our motivation. We all have a motivation. We all have an underlying, exact, differentiated motivation. But our motivation's transferred too. It's very easy for someone to change your motivation. Change your motivation. That person that steps into your aura, they can change the way you see. They can change the way your mind is motivated. If you're not aware of that, you're really screwed. You know. Because everything that you've ever thought in relationship with them, it's all been conditioned, has nothing to do, and you think it's you.
This is the way I see. This is the way I think. It's me.
You know, as if you control all of that, as if you have some great defense system inside, you know, that's protecting you. And you don't. You don't. We are deeply, 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 deeply vulnerable creatures. After all, we're a bioform. And as a bioform, we are designed by genetic imperative to be attracted to what we're not. This is the way we're designed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a viable species. We would kill ourselves in lousy mating. You know, so we have all this attraction. It's so easy for you as a projector to get lost in that. Just lost. You know, you need to find your anchor. Your anchor is your recognition. It goes back to the theme that I started with today. It's about what you can recognize. I'm going to give you two things this afternoon that you can recognize. To work on your recognition. To see that phenomena of suddenly being the watcher of your own mind. And just seeing it. Seeing that person step into your aura, and all of a sudden you can watch your mind shift. It's an amazing thing. It says to you, boy, you better let go. You can't control this. You can't stop somebody from doing that. You can keep them out of your aura. You can be aware that they're the kinds of beings that when they step into your life, they distort the way you think, they distort the way you look at things. You can also begin to see things that most people don't recognize, that most relationships begin not because of the way you connect to the person, but the way in which the program, the transit field, brings the two of you together. What seems like a great invitation can end up being a disaster if you don't have the keys to see when it starts deteriorating. The moment that transit would go away that supported the two coming together, all of a sudden, all of that underlying business would come to the surface. You see, for recognition, what you have is the greatest gift of all. You have the mechanics. All you have to do is see the mechanics. You take the mechanics into your system and you watch them come alive in the world around you. And day by day, moment by moment, it will release you from your vanity. That vanity that you're in charge, you can make a difference, that it's up to you, on and on, all these things. And see that it isn't. It isn't. You don't know who you are until you truly live it. The not-self is not who you are, and yet it has all those habits attached to it. All those things that you've been through, the people that you thought belonged in your life, and on and on and on. That's not who you are. You know, and the only place that you can get, the only way in that sense that you can get there is to begin to build the most fundamental thing that you need, that trust in your power as a projector. If you trust in your power as a projector, you'll begin to find what I always exhort people to, which is self-love. You know, begin to see your worthiness in the correctness of that. Because it can't come from anybody else. Not about anybody else, you know, pointing out that you're worthy. The moment that you're correct as a projector, you get all that anyway. You will get the recognition. That's the whole point. But you have to be ready for it. You see what happens in the not-self world when people get recognition before they're ready? You know, the young stars that are given huge amounts of money, athletes, actors, actresses, this kind of stuff. You know, what a mess it is. You know, to be really ready for your recognition is to be prepared. And part of that is to free yourself to see. To be able to see, you need to see. You need to see your mind and how mechanistic it is. That it's not something that you've set up. That it's something that's just there, caught up in an evolutionary process that functions the way it functions relative to the forces it connects to. And then you get to a very special place. You get to the place of entertainment. You know? And entertainment isn't just good. You know? Some people like to go to horror movies. Some people like, schmaltzy dramas. Some people like this and that. It isn't about what the movie is. It's about embracing it. It's yours. It doesn't matter what it is. After all the stuff that goes on is in the material plane. It's just something that we are experiencing. And in your correctness, what you get to see is that your particular model, your particular, trajectory in this process really is something special. It just is, because there's nothing like it. I mean, the beauty of human design is differentiation. You get human beings to that place where they can finally separate them from all the conditioning authorities that have defined their life and get to be them, get to be you. So that you can exalt what it is that you're here for, which is to see. So our exercise today is to give you things to look for. So there are things that you can recognize, that you can carry with you. And we'll see where that goes. All right, we're going to have our... what time is that? Oh, I still have time. One of the things that I always find so difficult for students to grasp because of the, all the new agey stuff and all of these kinds of things. There is this assumption that there is a transformation that takes place that is some kind of cliche. Like the awakened state, like the enlightenment, like all of these things. And that there is an assumption about the way in which that's going to look and the way in which mind is going to operate and so forth and so on. See, what's obvious to me is that there are no standards. There is no comparison. I mean, human design is not about they or we or us. It isn't. It's only about you or I. It can't be about anything else. A couple of you here have charts that are similar times, stuff like that. There's no such thing. I can show you how profoundly different they are. We are all deeply, deeply, deeply unique as a potential. And it's only when we're living that uniqueness that there really is the point. There is no other point. Everything that you see in the world around you is all about homogenizing people so that they don't stand out in the crowd. Homogenizing everyone to the same way of looking at life and looking at problems and dealing with things. Homogenizing us to a point that we all have the same kind of sicknesses at the same time and, it goes on and on and on and on. It's all homogenization. Human design isn't about that. Human design is about the potential that each human being has to be unique. And unique means there is no standard. And when you think about that, it means that your life can only be your model. It can't be some other kind of model. It can't. Any more than I can be a happy Buddha. It's not my trip. There aren't set. I'm a pure individual. I'm melancholic. Melancholy rules my life. I love it, but there's no reasons. If there's no reasons, it's not the same as most people would identify with that. For me, it's just another state. It's an energy field I move into that can be very nice and creative and so forth and so on. We all are unique in the way in which we operate. And we carry all of this intellectual, mystical, spiritual baggage about the way things are supposed to look. If you're going to be an awakened being, you certainly have to dress funny and live on some mountain somewhere, or whatever the case may be. See, being awake for me is the most mundane thing. It's a right. It's built into everybody's design. It's not a hope, it's not a wish, it's not a fantasy, it's not spirituality. It's a mechanism. We're all here to be aware. Whether we get there or not's another story, but it doesn't mean there's anything that's stopping that, in the sense that mechanically nobody is denied it. It's there in your design, in everyone's design. And it isn't about that suddenly your life is transformed. You're going to do the same stuff. I still take out the garbage, still the same movie. It isn't about any of that. It's about liberating yourself from your mind wallowing in your life. Because it's not what it's here to do. You're here for the ride. You're here for the movie. You're here for your story. You're here to live out the perfection of whatever that story happens to be. And you can do that. It begins with strategy and authority. It doesn't end there. There are many steps that you can take to help yourself in that process. Dietary regimen, locating yourself in an environment that is healthy for you. All of these, various things that are available in the knowledge. But it begins with something very simple. As projectors, because you are here to recognize, you need to get your mind out of your life. Because otherwise you can't use it for what it's here for. You're here to see. You're here to recognize. But you're going to end up being very blind if you're nothing but conditioned and your mind is turned on you. And you spend all your time with your internal reasons that don't take you anywhere. They don't. And the most important thing to do with your mind is give it things to recognize. This is the most important thing to do with your mind, is to give it things to recognize, to work on, to focus your intelligence, to take your reasoning system out of the self-flagellation stage and put it into productive usage, because that's what the possibility is for you. Most projectors that I know reek of bitterness. Reek of bitterness. And this is not what you're here for. It isn't. The projector is here for the sweet smell. This is what you're all about. And the moment that you work with this tool in the way it was intended to be used, changes your life. Okay, we'll have our lunch break.